Maya's alone at her desk this late, staring at a number that shouldn't be possible from money this small, 100 times leverage on a single trade, and the position's already worth more than a year of her rent. No one else is awake to see it. She takes a screenshot anyway, the way you save something you're not sure you'll get to keep, for someone who isn't there to send it to. The number keeps climbing. She doesn't look away long enough to wonder why nothing this good ever explains itself. Maya opens a long on Bitcoin at 100 times leverage, a small deposit turned into a position bigger than she's ever controlled in her life. The price moves 0.5% in her favor within the hour. Her account balance doesn't just go up, it multiplies. She checks her balance 10 times too many and still checks again. A few $100s just became a few thousand, on a move so small she'd never have noticed it any other way on a Tuesday. Doing nothing more skilled than refreshing a page she couldn't stop looking at. She doesn't tell anyone. There's no one to tell. And who would understand it anyway? Some part of her likes it that way. The number is entirely hers, unwitnessed, which makes it feel more real, not less. At 100 times leverage, every win compounds fast. A few $100s becomes a few thousand, becomes, within weeks, more than she's ever had in one place in her life. She doesn't slow down to enjoy it. She's already added to the position, again and again, each win funding the next one bigger every time. She learns the mechanics the way you learn anything you're good at, by doing it constantly. At 100 times leverage, the price only has to move about 1% against her to wipe the whole position out. She knows the number cold, the same way a driver knows a speed limit. Not something she worries about, just something she works around. Every session ends the same way, bigger than it started. She stops thinking in dollars within a month and starts thinking in Bitcoin instead. This trade was a double, that one was better. Somewhere in there, without really deciding to, she starts sizing up. Not just leverage. Actual position size, real money, more of it every week, funded entirely by the last win. Friends stop being the people she'd tell about a good trade, because a good trade now is bigger than most people's savings, and there's no version of that conversation that doesn't sound insane out loud. Eventually the account's big enough that she does the math a different way. 100 times leverage on $2,000 and 40 times leverage on $5,000 control the exact same size position. Except the second version only gets liquidated by a move of roughly 2.5% instead of 1%, which means more room to run, bigger trades, held longer, compounding harder without babysitting every tick. 40 times isn't her stepping back, it's her scaling up. She writes it down in her journal, the way she writes most of her decisions down lately, since there's no one else to say them out loud to 40 times. Bigger money, more room to run, nothing holding her back. Keep that number in mind. 6 months from now, it's the exact same one sitting in a screenshot she can't stop looking at. 40 times works even better than 100 did. Bigger positions, fewer bounces, and the compounding turns serious. The kind of numbers that used to take months now taking weeks. She keeps pushing, adding size every time a position closes green, because so far every single one of them has. A win becomes a bigger position becomes a bigger win, the same loop running faster and faster, until the numbers stop sounding like numbers and start sounding like a different life entirely. Then the platform she's been trading on this whole time announces it's shutting down. It's been losing ground for a while now, beaten slowly by faster competitors until there was barely enough left of it to bother closing properly. She has a matter of days to move her position somewhere else or watch the platform force close it for her on its way out. So she moves fast, faster than she'd like, onto an exchange she's never used before, carrying the exact same 40 times position over mid-trade, because starting from nothing again feels like giving up ground she's earned. It's the first careless decision she's made in months. It doesn't feel careless, it feels like the only option. True story. A trader known as James Wynn turned $7,000 into $25 million on Hyperliquid, starting with a coin that was mostly a joke. He kept going, the way you do when a thing has only ever gone right. Bigger positions, more conviction, thousands of people watching his account like it was a sport, screenshotting his wins the way she'd screenshotted her own. For a while, being watched by that many strangers must have felt like the opposite of being alone. Eventually, he opened a single position worth over $1 billion, leveraged 40 times, the exact number Maya's been trusting for months. Bitcoin moved 2%. The whole position was gone in the time it takes to notice it was happening. He changed his bio to one word: bankrupt. 2%. Her number was supposed to survive that? It doesn't survive that. On the new platform, still unfamiliar, still not quite trusting where anything is. A move that size hits her position days later, not weeks. No warning in the news, no reason anyone could point to afterward, just a number crossing a line it had never crossed before, on an interface she hadn't fully learned yet, at an hour when she'd stopped expecting to need to watch. She watches the liquidation happen in real time. Looking for the note afterward, she opens the journal to exactly where she left it, 40 times. Bigger money, more room to run, nothing holding her back. She wrote that, nobody made her believe it. She just did, in an empty room, and believed it enough to lose everything on it. The truth of it is simpler than a single bad trade, and worse. All of it, every double, every compounding week, the number that stopped sounding like a number, was paper. She never took profit. Not once, not even a little, because taking profit meant admitting the climb might stop, and it always had kept going, so why would this time be any different? When it goes, it doesn't just take the last position. It takes months of gains that were never cashed out, never real in the way a bank balance is real, except that they were real enough to plan a life around, which turns out to be real enough to lose. She gets ill after, not as a figure of speech, properly ill and depressed for months, the kind of low that doesn't lift just because she tells it to. There's no clean lesson sitting inside that part, and it doesn't get one here. It just happens, the way it happens to people who lose a future they'd already quietly started living in. When she comes back to it months later, it isn't the same. She doesn't rebuild by leveraging up past what she actually has, chasing the multiplier that built her account and then erased it. She uses leverage the way it was actually meant to be used, sized to reflect a position she already holds, not stretched past her real capital to manufacture one that was never there. Real Bitcoin sitting untouched somewhere safer, protected by a leveraged position size to match it exactly. That's insurance, a leveraged position size to money she doesn't actually have. That's just gambling wearing a spreadsheet. Hedging, not gambling. The difference was always sitting in the math. She just needed to lose everything once to finally read it properly. Leverage isn't gambling. Leveraging past what you actually have is. And it took losing everything for her to see the difference. Subscribe for more. What's the highest leverage you'd actually be brave enough to try?